Namaste and welcome back to Orbit by RISA Astronomy. I'm your host Anish, also the founder of RISA Astronomy, and today it will be an extensive journey through the night sky for December. We stand at the threshold of the final month of the year, and along with the cool Indian winter, we can witness some of the most spectacular astronomical events of the entire annual cycle. In fact, this month we will see a final supermoon, the so called cold moon, which will dominate the early weeks. And we have the king of planets, Jupiter. And of course, who can forget about the annual Geminid meteor shower? That's going to be epic this year. We also have the winter solstice, marking a kind of a astronomical turning point of the season. So, whether you're an amateur astronomer with a telescope on a rooftop in Bangalore, or you're a casual sky watcher enjoying a holiday lying on a cot in a rural village in India, the sky has something for you this December. First, let's talk about the lunar cycle because it's the most obvious object in the night sky this whole week, because the moon is almost in its full phase, and this month it is going to be extra large. We call it the supermoon. You'd have heard this term before, but there's also a special name for it this time. They call it the cold supermoon. And well, the reason is not really related to science, it's just a name given by Western culture. They have a name for every moon in the year. Now, the moon in the first week, it resides in the constellation of Pisces. We call it Meena Rashi, and it's moving rapidly towards Aries. It's very bright in the sky like a lantern. It's definitely washing out all the fainter stars, but paving the way for the spectacle that is to come later in the week. Yes, we're talking about the Geminids because the moon and the Geminids are kind of not compatible. As we move on to the night of December 4th, we encounter a celestial alignment of exquisite beauty. The moon now is almost 99% illuminated and on the verge of being full. It appears near a star cluster called M45. You would have read it in books. It's called the Pleiades, but in India it's called Kritika. Now, Pleiades is an open star cluster. It's located in the constellation of Taurus the Bull, or Rishabha Rashi. It contains hundreds of stars, but to the naked eye, it appears as a tight grouping of about six, maybe seven stars, bright blue-white stars. The car maker Subaru, they used this pattern in its logo. On this night, observers in India will witness a very close conjunction, while observers in Northern America and parts of Europe might witness a lunar occultation. That's where the moon physically obstructs a star. And well, in India, it's not favorable for that, so we will only see a close flyby to the Pleiades. The moon will be immensely bright this whole week. That would make it kind of easy for you to spot some other objects in the night sky, starting with Pleiades. But Pleiades, as I said, is a bit of a challenge, but on the full moon night, you'll see it if you really observe closely. Now, the Pleiades is dominated by hot B-type luminous giants. They are relatively young in cosmic terms, about only 100 million years old, and they are approximately about 400 light years from Earth. And seeing them next to the moon, it's a nice contrast because the moon is only 1.3 light seconds away, and kind of gives you a sense of the depth and perspective, right? 1.3 seconds being the time taken for the moonlight traveling at the speed of light to reach Earth. The moon will be situated, as I said, in the constellation of Taurus. The planet Uranus is nearby, but definitely invisible to the naked eye, or even with a small binoculars or telescope from the city. The moon appears a little bit bigger, and that's the whole thing that you hear about the supermoon. And that's because the lunar orbit is not circular, it's an ellipse. And at some time, the moon will be closer to Earth, and at some time, it will be further to Earth. So at the closest point, it's called the perigee, and at the furthest point it's called the apogee. Now, if the full moon coincides with its closest approach to Earth, we call it a supermoon. So, on an average, we are talking about 20 to 30,000 kilometers closer than normal. So, this proximity has two observable effects. One, the moon appears approximately 14% larger in diameter than what we otherwise call a micromoon. And two, the brightness. The moon appears nearly 30% brighter due to the inverse square law of light. Being closer basically means significantly more sunlight reflects off the lunar surface and reaches our eyes. In Indian context, this full moon is the Mrigashira Purnima. The month of Mrigashira is often associated with the onset of cooler seasons. In other countries, they call the Orion constellation. So these are probably interchangeable, Mrigashira and Orion. Now, as the moon rises, it will likely exhibit a deep golden or orange hue, sometimes even reddish. This coloration is due to the Rayleigh scattering. The moonlight must travel through thicker layer of Earth's atmosphere when it is near the horizon. Because the light is traveling through more of the Earth's atmosphere, it scatters away the shorter blue wavelength, and only the longer red or the orange wavelength they pass through till our eyes. And this is a night where you can easily read a book by the moonlight. Now, when it comes to the waning phases, because right after the full moon, that's what you get, is the third quarter is around December 12th. The new moon is on December 20th. This is kind of an astronomical reset button because the moon comes in between the Earth and the sun, and it leaves the night sky completely dark. So this is really optimal for deep sky observation. So if you're looking for galaxies, nebulae, star clusters, and things like that, the 20th of December or thereabouts is your best bet. And of course, the first quarter, the moon returns to the evening sky like a half-lit orb, and that's around the 27th of December. Now, the planetary parade, a word which has been much maligned, but maybe we could use it for December too. The overview is that Mars is hiding, Venus is hiding, but the big gas giants, Jupiter and Saturn, they're putting on quite a show. And of course, the elusive Mercury is also visible for the keen observer. Jupiter is undoubtedly the king of the night sky, and particularly in December, it's going to approach what we call as the opposition. Now, no, it's not going to the parliament. It just means that Jupiter is, well, technically the opposition happens in January 2026, but for practical purposes, it's almost very close to opposition now. And what opposition means is that when the sun sets, Jupiter will rise in the opposite direction. So when the sun sets in the evening, Jupiter is close to rising. That is sometimes the best time to look at the planet. Now, if you look east northeast shortly after sunset in early December, you will see this bright star. It's kind of creamy yellow and it doesn't blink, it's very steady. And you will clearly see it next to the twins in Gemini. We call it Castor and Pollux. It's very close to that. But Jupiter outshines both Castor and Pollux. And of course, if you have a pair of binoculars and you can hold it steadily or put it on a tripod, like even a 10 by 50, which is a birding binocular, you will be able to see the Galilean moons. Four of the moons you will be able to see: Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. Usually they are in a straight line and their positions change night by night, so I can't tell you which is which. Sometimes even they change by the hour. Now, if you have a small telescope, you could see the planet's disk, and you can see two equatorial cloud belts like bands. It looks like a cricket ball. And well, if you have a larger telescope, then you may be able to see even the great red spot as long as it is facing the Earth. On December 7th, watch out for a conjunction of the Moon and Jupiter. This is a collaboration you don't want to miss. The waning gibbous moon will be situated very close to Jupiter in the constellation of Gemini. As I said earlier, Jupiter is in Gemini. But if you just want to remember this, it's the moon that keeps traversing from one constellation to the other every night. If you remember, the moon started off being close to Aries and now it's moving on to Gemini within 3 days. This pairing will be visible whole evening on the 7th of December, so make sure that you watch it, and it's a very good photo opportunity as well. Now, how can we forget Saturn? Saturn is a ring jewel, the crowd favorite, and usually people who've seen Saturn have a lot of stories to say about how great it is. Saturn is kind of a showpiece in the night sky, and it shines a little bit less brighter than Jupiter, almost probably comparable to a bright star called Aldebaran. In India, we call it Rohini. This is in Taurus constellation. It's a V shape in the night sky. You may be able to see it, you may have already even seen it many times. So, Saturn is in the constellation of Aquarius, but you don't need to know that because Aquarius is really very dim and usually not visible from most urban areas. It's overhead right now if you're looking at it around dinner time. Here's another collaboration, as we call it. December 26th, that's when the crescent moon will be very close, but not as close, but very, very close to Saturn. So now, if you're not able to find Saturn on most nights, December 26th, look for the moon and you will see Saturn. It'll be very easy to find. So that's a clue. Now, coming to Mercury, well, Mercury is a bit elusive. So if you're an early riser, December offers a very good opportunity to spot Mercury. In fact, December 7th, once again, that's when Mercury is at its greatest elongation west. This means that it is at the maximum separation from the sun in the morning sky. Look, Mercury is very close to the sun, so it's always going to be lost in the glare of the sun, except when it is there is maximum separation from the sun, and that's December 7th. So look low in the southeast, about 45 minutes to an hour before sunrise. You may be able to see a yellowish dot, and it's very difficult to observe, but it's definitely worth a try, particularly if you're an early riser. But of course, make sure that the eastern horizon is clear, no tall buildings, no trees, nothing like that, and it's visible for the first 2 weeks of December, 10th of December being the best. Now, coming to Mars, I would say that it is invisible, so don't even try looking for Mars. Mars is going to be away for some time, for a few months. It's going to only come back in 2026. So let's forget about Mars for some time. And even Venus is not visible this entire month. Now, coming to the Geminid meteor shower, there's a huge fireworks display that happens every year without fail. And this time, the supermoon gets out of its way, leaving us astronomers for a very, very reliable forecast of intense meteor showers this year. Firstly, let's get to the source and the science behind that, right? So, most meteor showers originate from comets, ice, dust, snowball, all that, right? But Geminids are unique because their parent body, D200 Phaethon, is an object that is classified as an asteroid. Now, Phaethon has a rocky composition like most asteroids, and the debris that it sheds is denser and usually more robust than typical cometary dust. So, what's a meteor shower? A meteor shower is when Earth slams into the dust left by comets, or in this case, asteroids. Now, as I said, there is a physical difference between the Geminid meteor shower and the others, and that's because Phaethon's rocky composition leaves denser debris. All right, so that means that they often are very vivid. They could be white, yellow, occasionally blue or green, and that's caused by the ionization of elements like sodium and magnesium, which is in the meteoroid, and it's entering the atmosphere at insane speed, and so it really burns up or releases all of its energy. That's a technical term in the sky, but we get a spectacle. Now, the primary enemy of meteor showers, as I said earlier, is moonlight. But as I said, also the moon is kind of done its thing for the month. Now, on the 13th of December, when the meteor showers peak, the moon is on a waning crescent, and it doesn't rise till much after midnight. I think about 2:30 in the morning, which means that you get a very good window from about 7 p.m. till about 2:30. And even then, even after the moon rise, the crescent is actually not that bright to ruin the show. So even after 2:30 a.m., you will be able to really spot some meteorites. All right, well, hopefully it's not a meteorite and it's just a meteor. If you know the difference, good. If you don't know, we'll probably get you up to speed on another episode. Now, the radiant, or what we call as the point where meteors originate or they appear to originate, is in a constellation of Gemini, and that's why it gets its name as Geminids. And now, there's one word of caution: the smartphone. Avoid looking at your phone screen for at least about 20 to 30 minutes so that your eyes adapt to darkness, and once they do, you will in fact be able to see more shooting stars. In fact, there are many years that we have observed close to 100 shooting stars an hour, which is kind of the peak rate of fire, but you should easily be able to see 50 meteors every hour on the peak night. And on the off peak nights, which is the 12th and on the 14th as well, and even in fact on the 11th and the 15th, you should be able to see at least 100 all through the night. So it's not like the other nights are not good. If you can't make it on Saturday, try to look up on Friday, the 12th, or Sunday, the 14th. The year is going to end on a big note with the winter solstice, as always. The winter solstice, an astronomical phenomenon where the sun, some of you may know it, but if you've seen the sun rise, it doesn't really rise at the same point at the horizon. So if you mark where dead east is, with a compass, the sun seldom rises there. Usually it is traveling to the south or it's traveling to the north. We call it Uttarayana and Dakshinayana in India. This moment in December is called the winter solstice because the sol or the sun comes to a standstill, stis, on this date. For from an astronomical perspective, as I said, it kind of marks the beginning of winter for most of the people in the northern hemisphere. So it is culturally significant, and we also have a festival which is linked to this, which is called Makara Sankranti. And Makara Sankranti, however, occurs in January. That's a whole podcast about why that's so, why the dates are not matching. We will probably get to that in a future episode, but it's definitely a profound marker of planetary mechanics, right? The moment Earth's north pole is tilted maximally away from the sun. As the year draws to a close, the December 31st, the sky offers a final curtain call. And I'm sure you're not looking at the sky on December 31st, but for those of you who are hardcore astronomers, well, the moon once again is in a waxing gibbous phase, and it returns back to the constellation of Taurus. If you remember, I said that the Pleiades are in the constellation of Taurus. So this is a whole circle that is completed by the end of this year on the 31st of December. So the celestial clock has reset as we prepare to welcome 2026, and it's a poetic reminder of the cyclical nature of heavens. That's all for this episode of Orbit. We will see you in the next one, or if you're in South India, perhaps at one of our next astronomy camps. Clear skies to all.